This is a systematic takedown. Overall, you can see the mainstream being imploded, politics, everything's being imploded. For this year, talking about like, oh yeah, Barack Obama might speak about releasing, so that's still like an external thing. So aliens, disclosure, and on a positive end, they're talking about free energy. So this is where even Barack Obama, in his first thing, he was working out in the Bay Area with solar stuff, and then that got shut down. So everything is on purpose. There are no mistakes here. You got that group, the New Age group, who is heavily vested in the alien space NASA shit and the government disclosure. So that's the government giving you information as just another external thing. Then you got the free energy space where the government is giving you more shit. And then you got the secret space program where that's still more government stuff, releasing stuff to you, and they have all these mouthpieces out there to show you tell you supposedly what it's all about. Then you have the Black Consciousness movement, and there are various layers of all of these, but I'm just going to speak on what I can in this flow to speak on the most obvious one. So you have the Hollywood, like the Bernie Sanders Black Consciousness movement, which is part of the Black Lives Matter stuff, where you have the Black Lives Matter speaker going on the Colbert Report talking about, this and that. You got Jesse Williams, who's in Hollywood, speaking on various layers. Not saying that any of this stuff doesn't exist. I'm saying that these individuals, these mindsets are put out there to make you think a certain way. It's just an extension of the slave movies and the slave mentality, like the we shall overcome. That's where the Black Lives Matter essence is focused in. The we shall overcome bullshit mentality is not an empowered space. The we shall overcome mentality is a victimized state of being where you are not in an empowered space. You are in a space of asking for something as opposed to embodying the energy, embodying a space of power, embodying a space of rooted energy and connections to all that is, and the Most High, and the people that you are supposedly relating to when you speak on these issues like this. Those are very different energies there, and this so-called Black Consciousness movement, because I'm speaking in relation to the Black Lives Matter and Hollywood and all this stuff, because there are layers of it where there's Black consciousness that's focused on metaphysics, there's Black consciousness that's focused on the various layers of the metaphysical understandings where they reconnect to the ancient Kemetic understandings of energy and magic and the golden ages of that time frame, the harmonics. So there's harmonics, and then there's disempowered, disharmonic movements that are based upon a reactionary mode, which is the stuff like this Black Lives Matter. You know that the Black Lives Matter shit is a program. It is a program that is being manipulated to appear as if things are changing, but really it's a space to guide people into a mindset that will merge with this whole gay agenda stuff, that will merge with the whole oneness and unification movement. It's all a timing. You have to gather these energies. You have to gather these mindsets all together at the same time. This is why Jesse Williams was on here talking about like revealing what is pretty much obvious. It's obvious what's been going on, but it's not so. It's different when people actually speak on this and say those words on a platform, on a stage. It takes on a different energy, and then that energy is just utilized. It's moved in a certain fashion to tell a certain story. So this story that they want to sell is just like back in the civil rights time frame. They were selling. There was one movement that was selling the understandings of the depths of Black power and the roots of the melanated peoples. And then there was the segregation focus, which was where the civil rights was founded on, was anchored in order to create another mid-level movement, another substitute version of change, which was the civil rights movement. The whole this is like Selma, like the whole Selma marching for voting rights and all this shit that's still within a system, as opposed to that's still inhabiting a space of disempowerment. Not saying that it's bad or anything, just saying that it is definitely, it happened. So it's a part of an understanding, but there's an understanding that is beyond a reactionary and an asking state of being. And this black consciousness, in quotation marks, slash Black Lives Matter equality, is trying to be equal within a broken system, still within a supremacy program. All the stuff that Jesse Williams was talking about, it held an energy that is empowered in an individual, but when you multiply that times a collective, an actual people of understanding, it is very weak. It's very, very weak. And it's not meant, I'm not saying it's not out there meant to, empower all the people. Like he's doing what he can, but there are people that are very much a part of a program, and we never know who is who, and anybody involved in Hollywood and all that shit is automatically fucking suspect when you're talking about all this, information that's being revealed and all this other bullshit. It's all needs to be taken with a grain of discernment, all of it. So it's automatically suspect if you're involved with Black Lives Matter, when you can go further into understanding that the black people, the original black people, the majority of black people, the melanated people, were already here in America. They were already here in what is now known as the United States, and were not brought over by slave ships. That is the distraction program. That is why there's so much focus on this African American empowered space, when that phrase alone is disempowering. And when you understand that there's this whole black and white game that's being played, when you realize that white people are not, so-called white people are not indigenous to the United States, are not indigenous to the Americas. When you go back, they are not indigenous here. Now, the so-called white space has evolved into a state of mind. But when you go into the actual bodies, the actual the European perspectives of it all, you don't hear so-called white people calling themselves European American. That's not out there, because that brings up too many real memories. It brings up too many this is why the whole black and white understanding of things was created. It's a substitute mentality. When they say black, it's an automatic triggering of the slave ships and something like coming from somewhere else. Like your power, your existence comes from the white program or whatever it is. So it's an automatic, like you are second nature to what is white. Just like in chess, the first move in chess is the white side. These are all like subliminal, tiny little programs. The little things that count when you're really looking at the energetic manipulation, the psychological manipulations of individuals and collectives as a whole. Equality within a broken system, it's reactionary and asking for a program, asking for energy to give them something, to give us whatever it is that we are asking for. And then when you get what you're asking for, you still exist within a box of disempowerment. So this is what this manipulated Black Lives Matter movement is promoting. So That's one part. Then you got it's relative to the flat earth, the so-called flat earth community, who is consistently asking for NASA to release this and the government to release that. You don't need these motherfuckers. You don't need that shit. There is so much information that is locked into the understandings of flat earth. There are so many things that are, when you reconnect, a lot of people are reconnecting with a creator, with spirit, with all kinds of different versions and perspectives of their reality, even the relationship with time itself, when they go into understanding the flat earth. They're reconnecting with ancestors, reconnecting with the indigenous understandings of nature as a whole. When you go into this, why? It's the easiest version is to sit around and talk shit about like, oh, how the flat earth relates to the broken system that was created on top of the globe model. It is the harder route to actually go into understanding what this shit has already meant to the indigenous people and what it actually means to the people today. The shit that the broken system is all secondary. That comes secondary, and in fact, it won't. That shit won't even be able to light a match to how deep and powerful it is to have a collective of people, even an individual that is locked in to what it means to understand and really connect to the depths of time, the depths of nature, the depths of the medicine wheel understandings of the peoples on this earth plane, the depths of being connected to a creator. All that other NASA shit, SpaceX, that shit is all, that's like the candles on top of the icing, on top of the cake that is the relationship of humanity to the earth plane as a whole. We are focused on the light that is out there, like the candle light that is out there, and really missing the entire point of going into what this shit actually means. There is so much natural science, there's so much alchemy that is within understanding the spiritual connections and with yourself and the spirit as a whole. When you start looking into flat earth and even the Mandela effect stuff, there's so much out there that we can start opening up and connecting with and asking questions about, as opposed to just automatically giving our power away and start yelling at, who created the globe model. Those motherfuckers don't even matter once you really go into the depths of what this shit really means. Technology is secondary to what our potential is on an organic space of connection and an organic space of movement into the so-called future. This is beyond a reactionary state of being. It's beyond anybody's so-called control grid when you understand a true connection to a creative intelligence that is obviously within the flat earth. And there's the science alone, you can spend years unlocking or unveiling or even questioning what's really going on here. So this shit with NASA and the government disclosure and all that shit, that's the easy way out. Once we start gathering each other together and start talking about the stuff that is beyond that, then we'll really start creating a space that is not susceptible to controllers and manipulative assholes who are just looking. Because let's just say that the flat earth is part of the disclosure program, and then they utilize this in order to sell the alien agenda, in order to sell the subterranean, underground, hollow earth stuff too. They mix it in some kind of way. Now, what now? Like that now you are put in a space of having all these people vested in the control grid. So when you have Bernie Sanders out there, this is another group of individuals who are setting a platform for not just a nationalistic socialist movement, but setting that, understanding what's really going on the international scope in the United Nations and the BREXIT stuff. You can see that And Bernie Sanders locking in with all these Hollywood people. This is a definite program that they're setting up right now. It's locking in and activating the gay agenda. They're utilizing the gay agenda to promote this humanity, this unification, this oneness that is based upon an idea of understanding humanity instead of the depths of understanding humanity. It's based upon the normal understandings as a reaction to a broken system, as opposed to connecting to the roots of humanity and understanding the natural spaces of human existence. There's a difference there between what is normal and what is natural. And these programs like the gay agenda, the Bernie Sanders, Hollywood, unity, that whole artificial oneness shit that's out there is actually the platform for the New World Order space, because it's going to be sold in a happy-go-lucky birthday package as opposed to the war-driven, war-mongering packages we've been sold in the past. They're not going to utilize the same shit to sell a new agenda, because they already know that shit's already broken. That's old. They pulled the last string on that space, and now it's going to have to be something new. This is why the politics is imploding just after the mainstream agenda is imploding. This is why Bernie Sanders is out there, and he's such a new version of politician, because they want to set the platform for who's the younger version of Bernie Sanders, and what would he be able to, or he or she be able to do on an international scale. That's what will bring in this this new world or new age order, and everybody will welcome this shit in. They will be able to like it. That's what they have to do next, is get people to like this shit. So it makes it even more obvious when you see all these people like Beyonce and Leonardo DiCaprio, Oprah, Rosario Dawson, Susan Sarandon. Like all these people who are backing a politician. They ain't never been involved in politics, but all of a sudden everybody want to come out all at the same time. This is not a fucking mistake. It's setting up the platform for this nationalistic, moving into an international version of unity and oneness. And all these terrorist ISIS stuff is playing the other side of it. The hoaxes, the false flags, all that shit is being out there to get people emotionally charged, emotionally anchored in giving their power away, asking for change, and promoting some kind of movement of something. Just anything, because we haven't had anything for so long. This is why they're doing all this stuff right now. Once they make these moves, this is not a mistake. Once they make these moves, that's just a precursor to another move. Then you have, just underneath everything, you have these professors in university systems who are locked in with the politics, locked in with the money grid, the fiat currency, the maritime admiralty system. All of it's all part of the same thing. It's all a control grid. And you can see how they ball all this shit together. They just commercialize Egypt and commercialize science and alchemy. They commercialize the ancestral, the indigenous understandings of what's going on here on the earth plane and what their understandings of the cosmology was. And then they just repackage it and sell it to everybody as this is how we understand it today. And since we are the evolved versions of what these savages were back in the day, then this is what it's moving towards. This is what it's all about. It's all about technology and the future aliens and all this shit that's coming up. But you got to really look at the fine print, the details that's really within this, because they are selling agendas in here. In the 21st century, technology is heading in a radical new direction, the merging of man and machine. This is what they're telling you. That is a statement. This is not like this might be happening. No, this is a focused statement, and it is directly locked into the New Age community. When you got David Wilcock on here, and all these like Eric von Daniken and all the George Norrie and all these other people and all the people they're connected to, talking about, you know, what's going on. You gotta understand, like, when they say these things, like, they tell you technology is heading in a radical new direction, the merging of man and machine. Smart drugs, nanorobots, and machine-printed organs are just a few of the cutting-edge innovations catalyzing the evolution of humankind into an entirely new species. They call this evolution, this space, the celebration of the egoic version of our relationship to nature and each other. They're calling it innovation based upon evolution. Evolution from monkeys based upon the Big Bang evolution from a cosmic mistake. So it's just a lie sitting on top of a lie, sitting on top of a lie, dressed in a fancy suit sold to the people, which is cancerous in its essence. So when they say stuff like the transhumanists envision a future in which we become cyborgs, achieving far superior intelligence, the ability to survive beyond Earth's atmosphere without a spacesuit, and possibility of immortality, they are trying to create a version of your reality that is based upon a separation from the Most High, a separation from the natural space of being, and a connection to this artificial grid. This is why they watered down everything and mixed everything in together and sell it on the History Channel next to all the slave stories to make you think and act a certain way. This is why it's all lumped in together. And then it's underhandedly sold to everybody within the social media networks to sell their stories individually back and forth to make people buy into these programs and not even know that that's what they're really buying into. A transhumanistic agenda. This is how NASA, the university system, and the New Age movement is all linked in together, along with the mainstream media and these so-called professors and the politics as a whole. Along with all this transhumanism shit that's out there, they have this ancestry DNA, this genetic DNA coding, or you have all these celebrities talking about, oh, I didn't know I was, from, this part of the world, or my family's from this. These are all other stories to start to set the platform for this whole artificial unification, this we're all one shit. With this whole generic, it's a basic understanding of our human storyline in order to sell an agenda of another version of evolution. So they have to make everything basic and plain and just generic. When you go into the white supremacy program, it's an intellectual version of protecting the genetics of that space instead of going to the depths of the truth and seeing how all this stuff originates, where the roots are, and where it is that nature is taking us, as opposed to what this broken system has set up for us. So it doesn't matter what they do without their genetics understandings of it's just a show. They're talking about the 1% of information that's out there in the understandings of DNA. They're talking about the linear perspectives of DNA. They're talking about the physical reality perspectives of the genetic codings that are connected with our infinite space of humanity. They're not understanding the depths of what DNA actually means. They are selling an agenda of this oneness that is based upon just giving your power away to the scientific community, the professors, the university system, in order to make you believe in an agenda that is part of 10 more agendas behind the scene. This is why all this shit with this ancestry DNA stuff is out there so heavy duty. So you have these geneticists that are out there talking about, humanity originated from this, and humanity is, this, and they're speaking on humanity, never going into the true depths of the storylines outside of the post-Columbian era humanity. They're talking about an agenda-sized humanity. And then beyond this space, which this DNA genetic platform sets up the space for the technological versions of DNA that is related into this next agenda, which is this simulation theory, where they can lock everything into a technological grid and pump out more so-called evidence towards why we should evolve or move into merging our bodies with machines, is because we can extend our lifespans. We can become godlike in relation to the God that is the technological God, the simulation holographic God that is connected to their psychologically manipulating program of focusing everything on technology, this simulation holographic reality. And it's just one version of perceiving your reality. It's a basic generic version. I don't give a shit how many degrees they have in astrophysics, how many degrees they have in quantum physics and all this understanding. If they don't go into understanding the 360 degrees understandings of our connections to nature and balance and harmonies and the indigenous cultures as a whole, then they are selling another agenda. This shit right here is just bullshit. All of it is a structure to get people to lock themselves into a program of artificial understandings. And it's only out there to back up what they have been investing their monies and their energies in for so long. So they tell you they're working on something for decades, and then they create stuff like the Higgs boson, they create stuff like CERN, and then activate it at a certain time and say they've discovered certain things at certain times in order to back up the funding and the reasonings for why they've been working on whatever for so long. And then just keep telling that story over and over again. And then you'll keep paying your taxes into that program as a whole. And then not question your reality at all. It'll just continue on down on selling the future to people. And this is all based upon the separation program. All of these programs, there's the New Age group, the New Age program. You got the Black Consciousness program. You got the Flat Earth group. You got the Bernie Sanders political group, which is setting the platform for the international socialism group, still focused on fiat currency and the maritime admiralty system, actually an extension of that. Then you got the NASA university system, was focused on Mars and getting more money and focused on the future and transhumanism and technology and the so-called evolution of humanity. Then you got the simulation theory, which is the so-called intellectual group of individuals within the university system, locked into NASA, locked into SpaceX, locked into all of the programs that are out there, including Hollywood, to sell a more complicated version to the masses in order to have people follow these professors or whoever that have been placed out there for you to follow. We're unveiling it as we go. The thing is not to get stuck in any one of these programs and invest your energy, but actually to discern the fuck out of all this stuff and really see how it's all connected and how it's selling in a disempowered state of being. And this is why it's so important to realize what's going on these mid-layer control grids, where they're saying this is consciousness, this is evolution, this is us staying woke. All this shit, like delivered one of the wokest award acceptance speeches in recent memory. Woke is just your evolution towards, your movement towards understanding the truth. So if they keep people in this so-called woke space, then they can tell you what woke is. They can tell you what being awakened is. They can tell you that in the New Age space, being awakened is understanding your connection in the cosmos, and we're connected to aliens. If they're telling you woke is understanding, black power and equality and all this, none of that shit. No, they're telling you this is out. These are words and labels. They are energy in order to control thought processes, which is energy individually and collectively. The flat earth is only talking about NASA, the so-called flat earth community. They're only talking about NASA and government and waiting on this instead of utilizing their intellect, utilizing their understandings to reconnect with their roots, reconnect with the indigenous understandings, the energetic, the relationships that flat earth has with time and space and dimensions as a whole. If we don't need anybody else or groups or a government to reveal anything in order to go in there. And that's the actual expansion of consciousness outside of the control grid. We don't need that shit of, them releasing anything, because people are still going to have to go into the understandings of this shit on their own. So like the depths of it on their own. So why not start with asking questions internally before it becomes like a tidal wave of chaos and confusion and misinformation that is being delivered by another control grid. We can do this stuff now instead of waiting on whoever. The Bernie Sanders and the celebrity bullshit, it's just not even worth commenting on anymore. This shit is just bullshit to the umpteenth degree. These motherfuckers don't give one shit about you. Bernie Sanders is the same as Donald Trump, is the same as Hillary Clinton. They are selling something for something else. It's an agenda upon an agenda upon an agenda. This is a fucking movie. So I don't give a shit how much wonderful stuff Spike Lee has done, or whoever, all these individuals who are out here. If you are limiting yourself to a fucked up version of so-called wokeness or so-called consciousness, then you are not a part of the expansion of consciousness. You are a part of the fucking problem. And this is what it's all about. This is not, if you are not a part of helping people question their reality, if you are a part of getting people to get locked into another belief system, which is what this Bernie program is, then you are a part of the fucking problem. We are smart enough to expand our consciousness, our awareness, our connections, our understandings outside of the baby food that's being sold to us on a regular basis by this control grid on a political space, the university space, the scientific, all this shit. It's beyond that. We are growing beyond that. We have to understand the relationships between humanity and nature, between alchemy and humanity as a whole. We have to understand what this connection with spirit really means in order to go beyond this physical reality. This is quantum physics and all that shit. It's still focused on physics, the physical reality. They max out at that shit. They won't go beyond that. So if you have an understanding of spirit, connection to the Most High, connection to your ancestors and all this stuff, then you have a responsibility to challenge yourself to go into the depths of truth and understanding from an empowered space rather than a reactionary or asking for something else space or waiting. You're limiting yourself if you get stuck in any of these programs.